Hey, it's the Chief Bonding with Board Games and RPGs coming to you with Purple Haze from Phalanx. We've been waiting for this for a long time. I did the original preview and I was thrilled when the main game showed up. So what is this? This is Vietnam. You're a Marine squad, a little bit lighter than that, 6 troops, and you're going to be working through nine different missions that have a very choose-your-own-adventure, almost kind of ambushy, the old game from Victory Games, style gameplay. So you'll be referring to, a paragraph entry, and it will tell you some factoid, or, there's a burning village, and, what are we going to do? And there can be some traits that you do that are very role-player-esque. And you're going to have a movement board, a map that you'll be working on. You're going to be working within time constraints and stamina and tracking threats as they go up. And then you will eventually fall into combat and you'll be popping over to a tactical combat board, which is like its own little mini game inside the role-playing game. We're going to take a look at that map and at that tactical board and at your troops. A big part of this game is you've got little photos and your troops have different skill sets, and you can kit them up with different weapons and grenades and smoke grenades and flak vests, and there's all kinds of little things you can add to them. So as you play, you will work through different mission books that are in a big campaign. Skill traits, all on an RPG kind of feel, but you will be working, the art is gorgeous. You will be working through these individual missions that I'm not going to show you the inside of because it's similar, not anywhere close to identical, but it's similar to how like an ambush mission would work. Before we go in and look at that, I do want to show you, with some of the complexity, a little bit of the fiddliness that is here, you have a lot of player aids. So you have squad actions that can walk you through what you will be doing with your squad, how you do action rounds, taking the tests. You have what the enemy markers look like and what all the iconography is for. There's quite a bit of iconography, but you need it because it's on the different cards. It takes a little bit of time to grok, and then you start kind of, okay, those are focus, those are purple, focus die, they're up, I'm going to add one, they're down, I'm going to subtract one. You have a lot of R&R phase. You have Da Nang and town and base and end of mission that you'll walk through, and then you have the combat resolution, and you can see how that breaks through with the different dice here as well. We will go in and look at that right now. All right, I'll zoom in on a few of these. This will be your map and unit tracker board. So you'll be moving around on this, and I'll show you what effects that has. It will mostly be in your time tracker, which this is like hour by hour. Here you have 15-minute increments. Here you have the stress that you will pick up as you move and your threat indicator. So as you're moving, or moving a lot, your troops can get worn out. Over here, this will be our combat tactical board. I will spend more time zoomed in on that. Your lovely squad of 6 Marines and the equipment and weapons you get to assign to them. This is all up to you, and the mission parameters depending on what you have. You also have your encounter cards, and then these sets of 4 cards are wound, conditions, and lucky charms. Let me walk you through my squad real quick. So I'm zoomed in on Frenchie, my squad leader. Now I'm going to keep my hand off of here most of the time because I'll end up adjusting the focus, but then you attach the squad leader special attributes. I'm not going to go into all of these as we go. You'll also see they're going to be ordered in numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That will matter for combat when we get to it, and I will show you how that matters with the dice. I assigned my squad leader an M14. I've got it covered here a little bit. You can see the M14. I happen to also assign my squad leader a sidearm, a little Colt 45. It could have gone to anybody, but that's my guy. But you'll be able to assign smoke grenades, flak vests, the weapons, ammunition, because some weapons, if you go full auto, like this M16 here, you have an option to go full auto, and then you get the burst mode. It gives you chances to wound bad guys that are next to your target. Or you can do single fire, and then you've got different modifiers that come in regards to that. Each Marine tracks both their mental capacity before they break and their wound capacity. When they hit their max number for their wounds, you actually draw a wound card. You can have deep wounds, and again, I'm not going to go into all of them, critical wounds, flesh wounds, and there is a killed in action card, so they're immediately dead. So you've got the randomizer on the wounds. Let me show you how they'll move around on the map and how the tactical combat works. So over here you have your larger map where your unit is, maybe where your base is, maybe where some rumored enemy activity. Then you'll have some spots where you're told to put some other counters that will trigger certain things in your mission booklet. Now, I've just made this up so that way I'm not messing anything up for anybody that's going to play, because as you're exposed to things, a big part of the game is, the fog of war that's going on. So you can see we have paddy symbols, we have jungle, we have hills, and we have mountains. Those symbols are going to tell you how much time it's going to take to move through that particular square and how much stamina it's going to take. If I were to move into this next space, that would cost me 4 on my stamina. Let me slide over to the board so you can see the mountain is going to cost me 4 on my stamina track. So I would simply move 1, 2, 3, 4. If I get all the way over to here, I have to rest. If I get to 0, or my troops can start taking wounds or injuries. And then you can see the time. Mountains take quite a long time as well, so it takes an hour. So if I was at 0600, if I can get this on here nicely, I would just move to 0700. Now you can see the hills are going to take a little less stamina, a little less time. If it had been a hill, I would have simply counted my 15-minute increments on this part of it before we moved the full hour. Then we have our threat tracker, and as this number goes up, there's more and more likelihood not only of combat occurring, but it being more of a danger. So it's like you're tromping around in the jungle or you're making a lot of noise. There will be a setup sheet for the tactical board, and oftentimes if you're in the yellow, you'll add an extra unit, or if you're in a red, you'll add an extra combat unit. And the last thing I need to do is grab a threat die and roll it. Ooh, got a red. Red is going to move the threat up 2. So I could have had gray, which means it wouldn't have moved at all. I could have had green, which would move it back 1. Wouldn't have helped if I was already at 0. Or I could have had the yellow, which would just have moved it 1 spot. All right, one of the things I am going to show is a combat that can happen in Mission 1 at night. In the individual mission books, they have paragraphs, kind of similar to Ambush if you've played, definitely not the same, but kind of similar. It's going to give you little, turn to this page or turn to this event and resolve it. Well, this is a combat that's happening at night in this case. So you just read this left to right, and I'm going to explain in that first box to the left, it's stating that if it's night, and it is in this case, you're going to add an extra unit, and it shows you that purple star. Now I'm going to get my finger on here again because the purple star is also shown here, and this is a view of what the tactical board is, which I'm going to show you in a second. The second entry is telling you that there are tactics counters and you will not use mortars. So you will go pull that out. You have a series of tactics counters that the enemy will use. Because this is at night, I'm assuming there's no mortar fire. So you purposely will pull that out. You won't see this in this particular combat. You move to the second box, and it's telling you that the Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese or the VC, are going to start with initiative. They have initiative of a -5. That means they are going to act first. The small one here are those tactics counters. So where you're not using this, it's telling you will grab flanking. They're going to start with flanking. And then you're going to draw a random one and place it up here. Second, we move to a representation of the board. Now, the tactical board is going to look just like that. So I'm going to move up, but you can see the black stars are randomly drawn, basically regular Viet Cong. You have specialty units, which are displayed here. So you will pick them out, and they will go in those particular spots. You do see that pink one that was referenced here. That will mean it is on the board. If it was daytime, it would not. And then on my side of the board, you will see these empty little symbols. Those are hard cover. You can see hard cover up here as well. And then where troops are going to be placed. And the particular one, you can see my point man, which is my scout, is actually further back. So let's move to the tactical board, and you'll see this exact thing mirrored on it. All right, so you can see right here is that flanking counter. I've drawn a random one that will come in next. You can see I've mirrored the hard cover on my side. These boxes here are like a no man's land. That is where I would put smoke counters if they happen. My point guy happened to be my recon man. I've placed my medic in cover. You can see my sergeant squad leaders up front, and here are my other troops. Now, a very cool aspect, and one reason I'm staying at this kind of sideways angle as we look in, is you have hard cover. So if you're standing on one of those hard cover areas, again, this shows hard cover. So you can see I might be wanting to move some of my troops into hard cover. But you can see the NVA or the VC are already set up in some cases in hard cover. If I hit them twice, they would be able to remove one of those hits based on that hard cover. Now, again, we do know that flanking is in play with this first counter. So this very first counter, the flanking isn't going to matter, or these hard cover isn't going to protect on this one. We've been flanked. The other thing that's really interesting here, and I think I'll take a picture of one of these counters. I'll take a picture of this guy right here. He has 3 pips. You can see those 3 pips at the bottom of his counter. Those 3 pips are what's called soft cover. So these soft cover are just these little pips like this. They stack up and they go underneath the counter. In this case, he has 3. You'll see this guy has 2, and this fella over here only has 1. Well, these are like your ability to get down, or maybe it is laying on the ground instead of standing up. And these work very similar to hardcover, although hardcover won't move with you. These move with you. It could be just your ability to move quickly and get down. You can think of it kind of abstractly. But if somebody gets hit and they have 3 pieces of soft cover, I would have to hit them 4 times before they would actually take an injury. And then we have our initiative track. So you can see this particular fight said that the VC or the NVA start with -5 initiative, meaning they're going to go first. I'll walk through, and then as I take units out, they'll be placed here. I'm going to walk through a combat real quick. It's really interesting with the use of the dice, and I'm going to show you how the Vietnamese will attack first. So I've brought the flanking counter up just so you can see it, because the first thing you do on the Vietnamese turn is put that counter into effect or flip it over if it's hidden. So this tells me that when they attack, my troops are not going to have the benefit of hard cover. If you remember, that's only my medic. Now, very simply here, just again, looking at their pieces, let's start with this fella at the top. So you can see he's got 1 gray cube in that upper left-hand corner. So again, just right up there. You can see right below his feet, he is in 1 piece of soft cover, and you can see he's also in hard cover. You can also see a red die under each of these guys, and it says, in this one guy's case, 4. That's just his health. I have other little red dice I'll put on him if he gets hit. But again, right now we're determining what they're going to do. So very simply, I'm going to add up their cubes. So you can see 1 cube, 2, 3, 4. This guy actually has 2, so 5, 6, 7, 8, we'll come back to the purple, 9, and 10. 10 white, or they call them gray. And then again, you can see this guy with the light machine gun also has a purple die. That is focus. So I know I'm going to have 10 gray dice. I think they're white. I'm going to have 1 purple die, and then every combat has a base of 2. With one caveat, we're fighting at night. You subtract one of those at night just to show it's a little harder to focus. So this means I'm going to be rolling 10 gray/white die and 2 purples. I'm also going to draw an initiative chit, which looks like this. That is drawn randomly. If I can get it to turn over, it's going to cost 5 initiative. So that marker is going to go all the way down to 0. However, I'm going to add a critical die, that's that gold cube, and another focus die. So I'm back to 3 purples, 10 whites or grays, and 1 gold. All right, so I'm zoomed in on my dice tray, and you can see I'm going to be rolling these. Now, this is the interesting part. When I roll, the numbers on the dice will correspond to the numbers on my units. So my sergeant is number 1. And then number 2 is my commo guy, 3 is my MG, and so on down the line. That's how I'm going to know who they're hitting. But they need at least doubles to hit. Crits will end up doing 2 damage. The rest of these are just 1 damage as long as there's at least 2 of them. So let me just roll and we'll randomly see what happens. All right, so I'm going to put all these numbers together. All right, so you can see how this broke down. It's going to be a rough day for my machine gunner. So the way I like to do this is first I pull off one of these. So this one did absolutely no damage. My corpsman didn't get hit. There was no doubles. I'm going to pull away. There was doubles. He's going to end up taking 1 hit. This ends up being 4 hits. You have 1 hit each for the white die, and then the critical dice is 2. My scout took 4 hits, and then you're going to take 1 of these off. Clearly, he got at least doubles. And you've also got 4 hits for my machine gunner. Let's come over to the troops, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, my machine gunner has a health of 6. Well, he took 4 hits. So I have a 3 and a 1. And we've got his 4 hits. If he picks up 2 more, I'll end up drawing a wound card. Let's slide over to my scout. My scout also took 4 wounds because he had the 2 white dice, 1 each, and then the 1 critical die. There are some things if you get 2 crits and some things, but I'm not going to get lost in all the minutia. Let me give him his wounds. And we had 1 wound on my engineer. Boom. And we resolved those dice. So what I love about this attack is you're simply adding up the dice that are going to be thrown. You know there's always 2 purple dice, 2 of the focus. You may have more based on whether it's a chit pull or a unit that's in there, that light machine gunner. The critical dice in play from the actual initiative that was spent. You roll those, you immediately just, hey, what do I have doubles or more of? The singles come off, and then you apply those hits. Let me show you how a U.S. turn goes real quick. All right, it slid back to the initiative of the U.S. So we're going to get to take an action, but my actions, depending, and I'm going to show you that in a second on their cards, are guaranteed, because we're at 0, to send that initiative back to the Vietnamese. So let's say my M60 gunner is going to fire. I'll show you his card in a second, but the first thing I got to do is figure out line of sight. You can see these little white pips. Those are the line of sights for each of those areas. So if I tracked from him over to there, I could shoot. But if I cross where any of my other Marines are, it hurts my focus, takes away dice. Or if I cross through and shoot at like Vietnamese that are in the back, if I cross through other ones, it'll also remove some of my focus. So I'm going to want to shoot at this one or this one. Ideally, I want to drop some of these dice because if I can remove one of these units, they'll lose a die in their next combat. Because it's the M60, if I shoot at this fella, I'll be able to also put some like extra damage, some burst damage over on this guy. So I want to draw a line of sight from that pip to there. You can see it right there. Boom, no problem. That's just cover. It doesn't get in my way. There's no Marines in front of me. There's no other Vietnamese. So let's move over to my M60 machine gunner. Now he just took some hits. So I think he's wanting to get a little payback. Let me slide over to his card. All right, you can see we've got our M60 here. He does have one belt of ammo. We're going to expend that. His attributes on his card really aren't going to affect his bonus here. So I'm going to zoom in on the M60 itself so you can see how it works. All right, just looking at the M60, let me grab my little pointer. This is simply his encumbrance. Basically, he's got to be able to carry it. It's a heavy gun, not a factor here. This is going to be the amount of initiative I'm going to spend. Remember, it's going to push at 6, so it will end up pushing those 6 into the Vietnamese turn, so they'll have a lot of actions to take. But this means I'm going to roll 8 white dice or gray dice. I'm going to have my 2 focus dice as well. I'm going to add 2 gold crit dice, critical dice. I am going to expend my ammo for it. It cannot be targeted, which is just fine. There's some bonuses, like if you shoot at one individual. This is the range. He's 2 away, so that means I'm going to be here with that burst symbol. The little triangle is pointing up, so that means I'm going to gain an extra focus dice. That burst symbol in there means I will be able to target his buddy next to him, or actually if there were one on either side, but he's only got one next to him. Then I come down to this and it says if this or that. So yes, it is a burst symbol with a bonus. I get to remove 3 cover. So the cover is going to be gone, and you can see how you end up with some interesting decisions, because that alone means I get to pull 3 cover off of my target. So first, let's go look at the unit I'm shooting at. I'm shooting at this fella. The reason I picked him is just because he only has 2 cover, but I could have picked this guy and removed all 3 of those cover. But this guy's a little harder to take out with 4. Either way, it might have been better to take this guy, but let's go ahead and drop the cover. He's lost 2 cover. And now I'm going to roll the dice and see if I can hit him. I want to hopefully get enough hits that I can do some bleed over into this fella's cover as well. Maybe we can take him out on a future turn. Let's move to the dice tray. All right, this is what I'm getting ready to roll. So we know the M60 gave him 8 gray dice. I got 2 automatic purple focus dice. That's your default. My line of sight, nothing got in the way that would have reduced those down. And if you ever reduce your focus to 0, you can't shoot at all. But instead, due to the range, I picked up a bonus focus. And because, again, the M60, I have 2 gold critical dice I'm going to get to roll as well. We're going to roll these. We'll see what my numbers are. And then if I'm lucky, I can totally take out this North Vietnamese and maybe even take some cover, do some damage to his buddy. Let's roll these real quick. All right, let me put these into order. All right, a little bit different from when you're shooting at the Marines. This one, I simply need doubles, and that is how many points of damage I'm going to do. So this, my crit, unfortunately, which is worth 2, ends up having no doubles associated with it. Same with the 5 and the 6. Unfortunately, they go away. And then you do the same thing for your sets. You take off the first one. So just take 1 away from each. And then it's the damage that you have applied. So here I have 3 hits, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, because the gold does double. So I have 8 damage I can apply. Let's move over to the tactical board. All right, so we can see he takes 4 hits. He has no more cover because the M60 removed it, so he's gone. 4 hits, and he's out of there, and I don't have to worry about the damage he's doing. Now, you can never apply more damage to someone that's next to somebody in a burst than you did to the targeted counter. The good thing is, 4 damage to him, I can do 4 damage to him. So the first thing I have to do is get rid of all 3 of those covers. 1, 2, 3. So I've gotten rid of the cover, and now I only do 1 damage. He had 3 health. I've done 1 damage to him. So I'm going to take a little tiny die, and I change him to 2 damage instead of 3. He will still be able to do normal damage to me, but obviously on a future turn, much easier to take out. Let me pan over so you can see the initiative. So that was 6 initiative from that action. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now you've seen both the NVA turn and an American turn. All right, I've pulled back out a little bit. So what I would do is this would have moved down. I would flip it because it's now the NVA turn or the VC turn. And then I would draw their initiative marker, and then we would roll, and it would just go back and forth. Combat goes back and forth until there's only 3 of my Marines left, in which case the mission is over. It's like I've been made combat ineffective. If it's the Marines' turn and all 6 of mine have taken their action, I should have showed you. When you take an action, you flip it over, and now that unit is red, so you know they've done their action. The enemies have an ability to retreat, so if they start taking hits, they'll just float back into the jungle and be gone. I can obviously eliminate all the enemies, kind of hard to do. And sometimes there are specific event instructions that'll happen that'll end the combat. And I think I also forgot on mine, I should have removed one of the focus dice because we're battling at night. And that is one of the things, kind of, well, you got a lot going on, and you do have to focus just a bit on, the minutia of, oh, it's night, I lose a focus, or this happens or that, which is totally fine. But you got a feel for that combat, and it's always fun to chuck a bunch of dice. All right, you've seen how the map works, how the stress and the threat and the time board will click everything off as you're moving around on the map, and you've seen that tactical combat. There is also a 63-page rule book that is full color, beautifully laid out. I only got confused a couple times, but everything worked out as I was playing. And there's a quick start guide as well. Now, one thing I do want to point out is a lot of the voice in the game is like you're watching Full Metal Jacket. So sometimes, and it does say, I think, that it's an 18 and up game because there is some language in here, or there's some imagery. Nothing that would bother me, or I played a war game, or my role playing, but it is like you're watching, I don't know, just imagine the combat in Full Metal Jacket is probably a good way to explain the feel of it, and that is Marines in combat in Vietnam and during Tet. So you can imagine that was probably part of the feel they're going for. Not that it's based on the movie or anything like that. So my thoughts on it. I've been leaning heavy into role-playing lately, so I love how this game came out and kind of hit that niche with me. That it's both the board game, but that you've got your squad, and you start to feel connected to your squad and how you're going to kit them out. And then I like chucking dice. I think most of us do, maybe not everybody, but the idea, I wasn't sure how that tactical combat was going to work. I was like, okay, I'm adding up all these dice, whether it's the North Vietnamese attacking me or me attacking them. But I really liked when they attacked me, and it was the numbers that correspond to my squad. Because you see it come up, and then you're hoping there's no doubles, and then, oh my God, they rolled 5? What? There's 5 of the ones. My squad leader's just been hammered on this deal. And then you're going in and it works really quick, really smooth. Gameplay-wise, the only thing that seemed odd to me is if the Vietnamese are in the way of mine, why is that reducing focus? But maybe it's like I don't know who to shoot at, was what I was thinking. Totally get that if you're shooting through where one of your own troops is at, you're going to have to be careful, and it would take a little more focus, or, you would expend some of that focus. But everything, the way they worked it out with the board and the way the setup is variable based on the threat tracker and based on other keyword events. So the missions, as you run through them, if you are successful at one of the trait tests, you may pick up a keyword, and if you have that keyword in the paragraph that explains what that is, you later may find yourself in combat, but you're a little more aware, or there's a little bit less threat because of the work you've done on the map. And so the skill of your characters is translating into the combat on the tactical board. I love that. And really, the combat on the tactical board worked really well. I love how the initiative is pushing back and forth, and you're kind of deciding what 2 actions am I going to do with one of my Marines. And as they're taking their actions, they flip, and I have to work through all of my Marines. Do I move them to cover? Do I move them to hard cover? Do I rest or find better soft cover? Or am I shooting? So all of that that's going on, there's a lot of gameplay just in that tactical side. But then you're pulled back out, and you're right back into the mission, and you're feeling like you're trying to accomplish specific goals. And you even have a little setup with your squad leader at the beginning, which is like what his personality type is. Is he the mother hen? Is he the Barnes, the combat, I'm just trying to get payback for what happened to me in the past? So you've got that role play-esque that is tucked in very nicely to this Marine World War II combat game. So I enjoyed playing Mission 1. I haven't played the other missions, so I can't go in and explain to you like the hours of gameplay that are here or anything like that. But there was enough variability with both the threat tracker and the different traits and the knowledge that I gained that you could come back and play through a single mission, I'm sure, or at least definitely with the crash, multiple times, just trying to refine your skill and see how I can get better and better at this. So you could definitely play through, and I'm sure the other missions are the same way. Are all the surprises going to be gone? Maybe not all, because you're not going to trigger every single little event that's in here. But yeah, the big surprises will be gone, very much like Ambush, my favorite World War II board game. Well, B-17's up there too. But the ability to work through the paragraphs and feel like the world is alive, I think that is what you get with a game like this. And as long as you understand that it'll only be brand new to you once, but that they do have several other expansions for this, which I do not have, that you can get into. And if it does extremely well, kind of like Ambush itself, I'm sure there'll be more modules. Hopefully that gives you an idea of what this game is. Being over top of it, I think, shows you the feel and if you're going to enjoy this type of game or not. Chief, bonding with board games and RPGs.